Today's episode is sponsored by Zapata's Grill. They have been proudly serving our community for many years at 904 Pampico Highway. Head over to Zapata's today and get you an order of jalapeno skins and tell them that Sammy sent you.
Give me some tacos, give me some friends. Give me some Paula's jalapeno skins. Give me a good bite, whatever it looks like. Give me a big old filet tonight, and I'll be alright. Gonna put me in a corner.
So you've got, it's kind of weird, but to me, you've got, just from talking to people, I've heard this more than a time or two, but you basically run a hidden gem in Florence. That's ironic because it's not hidden at all. It literally couldn't be more in the center of
intersection.
Florence than it is right there at 5 Points,
Yep.
running FE Pops. Tommy, like what we typically do, give a little background and biography. So why don't you just give us the rundown,
All right. With the restaurant scene, the restaurant business.
wherever you want to go.
Okay. Yeah. Well, man, I'm from Florence, and got out of left home, needed a job. I started working at a place, Florence favorite. A lot of people, I think, want me to emulate and imitate Benton's Cork and Cheese Board. I think we talked about this. We
Mhm.
did the little thing, and Benton let me wait tables there. My first experience was, here's a pad. If they want a sandwich, write what it is on one side, slash for a soup. And that first day got weeded out, just slammed by myself. And so that's how I learned to wait tables, just with a pad and a pen and a full restaurant. And I had a blast. And from there, I just kind of meandered through, worked at Adam's Rib, bussing tables for a while. Worked at Applebee's here in Florence, bartended at Shooters, stayed at Apolani's, bartended a while. It was a fun time. Golly, I've worked at Bonneau's here in Florence. It's you know where that is? I think it was like 254. It's that big brick house there downtown. It's right beside Central Methodist. That big house used to be a fine dining restaurant. Worked in there. Ventured out, opened a place. I opened a delivery service for about a year or so in Florence. It was kind of I guess, a Uber Eats before Uber Eats was a thing. We actually used pagers to communicate with the drivers and had deals set up with the discounts on the food and then the driver fee, which was,
When was that?
golly, that was probably the early 90s. And it was so much ahead of its time. People would call and just,
I'd say so.
I can literally remember we didn't have it figured out, really. I mean, we were new at delivering. I remember I took 2 fried chicken boxes from the townhouse to Whitehall. Now, you know where the townhouse is,
Yeah.
downtown. Whitehall's
All the way across town.
near 10 minutes. And it was a $5 delivery fee on that. That was it. That was all they had to pay extra was $5. And I remember the people calling back in and just raising it with us that they had to pay $5 for us to bring them 2 boxes of chicken.
Ooh, they'd hate DoorDash today.
Right, that was early
cost you
90s.
$100.
I know. So that was. I think we were a little ahead of the time. We caught those kind of complaints all the time. They couldn't believe we would charge that much money to bring
Wow.
bring food. So on that for a while. Then we opened. It was interesting. I love that I haven't gone. I've gone to a hockey game, but haven't got into it quite as much as I want to. Just I really feel like the first of the year to now has just flown by. Like
It's
I mean,
crazy.
I looked up and it was
Yeah.
at the end of the season, and I caught a game. But we opened a place in Florence called Loopies. It was it's where, what is it? Margaritas is now on Second Loop, right down from Locals. That jumpy place. We had that's the first restaurant that I jumped out and opened. And we opened that place and we became great friends the Civic Center had let us put up an ad in there, and we traded the ad space for a meal ticket for the hockey players. And so we got to know those guys really well, like Chris Crombie, who was the enforcer. I mean, I didn't realize how bad those faces got mangled up with the enforcers. He would come in busted up weekly,
Just saw that this on Sunday afternoon.
right? Matt Turek, like all those guys, we became really, really good friends with them. They would come in and eat we go fishing with them and stuff and hang out. It was it, surprisingly, Red Bull was here at the time, big place. And when they won the Palmetto Cup, they wanted to have the trophy celebration at Loopies. Now, my occupancy on the place was 64 because we only had one exit, one way in and out. 64. And I was like, I'm just straight up with them, like, y'all are packing the Civic Center, like, we don't have enough room. They're like, this is where we want it. And so we agreed to do it. And I don't know if this is getting anybody in trouble, but but it was wild because they brought the Palmetto Cup and they put it on the bar and they said, fill it up. And so we started taking the beer and just filling up the Palmetto Cup. And this was way pre-COVID, right? So we put it back on the bar and just pass it over. And it would just go around and everybody was drinking beer out of this Palmetto Cup. It was just a fiasco. It literally would take you in that little place 10 minutes to go from just the kitchen door to the front door. It was so packed. And then not only were we breaking the fire marshal by like 5 or 6 different times inside, outside was a sea of people with tents from the radio station and different promoters and sponsors just lined up all in the fire lane right up front. Right. And so I'm like, man, I hope this is okay. I think I just kind of turned a blind eye to it. I probably should have checked with the city to make sure they were okay with me breaking the fire code and filling up the fire lanes. Um, and I'm halfway through trying to get out the front door, and I hear, somebody get Tommy, the fire marshal's here. I'm like, oh. Yeah, I mean, I think at the time, and this might not be true, but they were saying it was like $500 to $1,000 a fine a person.
Ooh,
What you were over,
man.
and we were breaking it big time, right? So I walk out, and it's Carlos was the fire marshal, and I just walked out and I said, "Sorry, Carlos." Like he goes, "I can't believe what I'm seeing." I was like, "Well, I thought you knew about it." I said, "I thought you knew about it, man. I just figured the city knew since it was the PD Pride, won the Palmetto Cup. We've been advertising that the party was here." He said, "I had no idea." And he just sitting there and goes, "I can't believe what I'm looking at." And he goes, "You know what I was going to do? You know why I'm here?" And I said, "Because of this?" He said, "No." He said, "I was going to Piggly Wiggly to get a steak, and then I was going to Blockbuster to get a movie, and I walked up on this." And I went, "What do you want me to do?" And he said, "I'm going to go get my steak and my movie." And he said, "But before I get that done, I need all these tents out the fire lane." I said, "All right, I can do that." And so we ended up taking the tents down. And he said, "I'll be back after the movie." And he never came back. And we moved the tents. Nobody else moved. It stayed packed, and we had a blast. But we really, really enjoyed hockey back when we had Loopies. It was a blast. And was looking forward to it coming here. I'm looking forward to next season and getting into it a little bit
It's
more.
off to a great start.
Yeah.
Going to grab a steak and going to Blockbuster, man. Those
Yeah.
were good times. We had it made.
I used to love Blockbuster.
I know, me too.
I had the thing where you can just get unlimited movies. I felt like I had to watch a movie a day to get my money's worth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's good times.
I left after Loopies. I actually worked at the church at Sandhurst for a while. Worked with youth and taught and different classes and stuff. Really, really loved that job. And then just left there and went and we started, had a nonprofit. It's called Me to You Missions, and we started a coffee shop, Lula's, which is still here in Florence. We started that and did a lot of nonprofit work through Lula's. It was interesting when I heard your interview with Mike Rickenbaugh. The human trafficking element was a lot of what we focused on a lot. We did events based around human trafficking, which was a new exposure for us, like, and heartbreaking all at the same time. And so I remember the first year we did, it was called the Lotus event. The first year we did is in trying to raise awareness, like, hey, just in purchasing products, if you just are smart with that. We just tried to, at first, I think we hit people with the human trafficking thing with a fire hose and just blew people away. And everybody felt guilty about everything they were purchasing. And we took a different angle and really started just loving people and helping people try to understand small things you can do to really help, in that area. Anyway, it was just really interesting in hearing him talk about the way AI and all that stuff is
That was
shifting.
crazy, wasn't it?
Yeah, wild, man. Just
Yeah.
that's horrible the way they can just redo the faces and then get away with it, and they're having to close all these gaps. Insane stuff.
That's something that you wouldn't have even But even if you really sat and thought about how bad the world is 10 years ago, you would have never thought about that. I
Right.
don't think anybody
And
would have.
that's when we were doing it. Like that's when we were out there and people literally it was repelling to people in a way,
Yeah.
almost like even people in the church were like, this is too much, and I can remember being overwhelmed after our first event. And then we partnered with these guys who have been doing it and do it around the world. And they came and said, you just need to slow down. You can't eat this elephant in one thing, just concentrate on a few things. And we really did, I think we did a good job at Lula's honoring our nonprofit and really trying to expose people. It was called Meeting You Missions, is the mission that it ran under. I've been able to travel all over the world and I've met some absolutely amazing people. And, the Bible says that where your heart is, your treasure will be also, right? Where your treasure is, your heart will be. And I realized missions a lot of times was transactional, right? It's you come in, you remember the movie The Jerk? You don't remember the movie The Jerk with Steve Martin? With Steve Martin, long time ago. Anyway, he becomes
I've seen a lot of Steve Martin. I don't remember that. We were yeah.
he becomes a millionaire. I don't even know why I'm going off on this, man. This is just absolutely. But he he becomes a millionaire, and all these nonprofits and missions come up trying to get money from him. He's like, "Get out of here! Get out of here! Get out of here!" And then this guy comes up, and puts a projector up of cat juggling. He's cat juggling. He starts writing $1 million checks for it. So I use the cat juggling thing. A missionary comes in and he presents his, hey, we do this work, this work, this work. And a lot of times it's a transactional. You sign a piece of paper from the guy and commit to giving $25 a month or whatever. And so I feel like that relationship was built on a financial bridge, not a relationship bridge. And so with Media Missions at Lula's, we tried to break that bridge down and not make it financial. And so the missionaries we work with, I would approach them first and say, listen, your mission is to us, right? Like we want to support you, but you have to come and get to know my people, because I think if we build the heart connection first, money will be a bridge. Money will go over a relationship bridge a lot quicker than a transaction or a financial bridge, right? And so let's build hearts. Let's build the hearts with the missionaries. Let's get to know them. And I think we did a fairly good job at doing that. I know that I still have people today after all these years that are tight, personally, people who live in Florence, and with the missionaries that we sponsored. So Lula's was a unique project. I love it. I miss it in a sense. It's not something we really do at Pop, so I would love to do more of that kind of stuff. But Lula's, and then after Lula's, I actually had a place to rent downtown. Cool spot. I don't think there's anybody in there, so I'm not going to say where it is. I don't want anybody running out and trying to grab it, because I don't know if there's something there. But a cool spot downtown. I had Lula's, and then I'd bought my property at 5 Points, and I remember just being overwhelmed one day, just so much going on, and we hadn't even opened downtown or 5 Points yet, and 5 Points wasn't even under construction. And I got overwhelmed, and I realized I was probably gonna be doing too much. It was 3 different places. I didn't really have a handle on what these other 2 were gonna look like, and so I ended up selling Lula's, letting downtown go, and just concentrating on 5 Points, which kind of ran me into a train wreck, because what I thought was gonna be about a 6-8 month project ended up taking over 2 years to get done, to build, which opened up directly into COVID. So we opened Pops, FE Pops at 5 Points. Literally, we had I don't even want to go off on the city inspector thing. They held us up for about a month and a half unnecessarily. And if somebody wants to talk to me about that, they can, because it was brutal. It was unnecessary. And so they held us up perfect, just in time enough for the DHEC inspector to come in, clear us out. He said, I had to show him a backflow device on my coffee machine, and I had to give him my ingredients list. That was it. And we were checked in, ready to go after all these delays, 2+ years of delays. I remember asking Ronnie, our DHEC inspector, I said, can you come back Friday? He said, well, tomorrow's Friday. I can't come back tomorrow. I'll come back at the first of the week. I got an email from him at the first of the week saying they've shut the state down. They don't even want us leaving our houses if we don't have to. They can't tell us we can't leave our houses, but they said just shelter in place. We're shut down. I can't come open your restaurant. And I wrote him back literally in tears, like, man, if you don't get us open in next, because I literally was paying credit with credit at that point. If you don't get us open, I'm done. Like I'm done now. I'm a dead duck sitting on the pond. I'm done now. You got to get us open." And he said, "Let me see what I can do." And like a day or so went by, and he texted and said, "I can come tomorrow." He said, "Have you heard about the social distancing thing?" I said, "Man, I'll stand outside. You do what you have to do, and put the thing on the door and let me go." And he came in and got us. I remember we sat there for probably about 2 days going, "How do you open a restaurant?" I'm all about momentum. I'm not really great at a lot of things in the restaurant business. I'm good up front. You know what I mean? I'm good up. I like the promotion. I like the momentum. I like to build it. And we never had a moment to build momentum, not financially, not. And we open into deadness, and it's still, a lot of people are like, well, that was 4 years ago, 5 years ago. What is it now? 6 years ago going on,
Yeah.
right? You got to get over it. I'm like, well, when you break both your hips, you don't walk straight for a long time,
Right.
if ever again. It was a tough haul. I think that if I'd have started with Effie Pops at the beginning of that long resume, and I probably missed a lot of places that I worked through there, I don't know that I'd be in the restaurant business. You know what I mean? And it's been a lot of hard work, but we're there and we love it. I mean, I think we're starting to come into stride a little bit, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm gonna work backwards on a couple things you said.
Okay.
Uh, two things that came up just listening to you share all that was one, you mentioned people being kind of overwhelmed with the information because there's just so much.
Talking about child
Yeah.
trafficking.
Yeah, so I'm kind of pinpointing
yeah,
a couple things. So the amount of evil in the world, and a lot of times, I mean, you grow up, especially in the past generation, and even mine to an extent, you didn't get exposed to a whole lot, maybe through Hollywood, but that was about it. And a lot of that's glamorized or toned down, depending on what it is. My concern is now, though, we're coming into a time period where it's the opposite problem. So you're having a lot of people that are desensitized to the reality because all they see is stuff
Right.
all the time. I was literally watching this morning. I was at I was at a lunch yesterday. That's where I was at with some of the guys, and one of the fellas had mentioned this airplane running into this fire truck. I
Saw
guess
that.
that was in Canada. Is that
Yeah.
an airport in Canada?
Or
And
like-
so this morning I was on X and it popped up right there, the video of, you see what happened. And I'm sitting there looking at it and I'm feeling like I really shouldn't even be watching this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like, I
yeah.
mean, like people lost their lives and stuff. Like, it's a bad tragedy situation, but it's right there at our fingertips. And
Right,
that's the
right.
world that we live in
Right,
now,
right. Especially on X.
especially on X.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. Information there's probably a lot of good with having access to information. You know what's going on out there, not be in a bubble. But on the flip side, my concern is we get desensitized to some of these things.
Yeah, absolutely we do. It's everywhere.
Another thing that I thought about, and this is totally a hard left from the gravity of that conversation. You've got this extensive background with the restaurant industry. I can relate to a lot to that. And we had Ryan Dalton on last week, and we were talking about server life and
Yeah,
some of
yeah.
those things, from whether it's front of the house or back of the house. But I think especially, and I've done both, and I know you have, but I think especially with the front of the house, isn't working in the restaurant industry a heck of an education?
Oh, golly, man. Daily. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm desensitized.
You know how
It's
many
everywhere.
places those skill sets can start to translate
Yeah,
to when you get
absolutely.
outside of it. And you
Absolutely.
realize you're pulling back to things that we were obviously at the racetrack this weekend, and my wife and I, Maria, were talking about journalism. And I actually went to the University of South Carolina for journalism briefly. I don't even mention it a lot because it was so brief. I didn't take advantage of the opportunity. But I realized over the weekend, just kind of watching some of the other media personnel do their thing, having a conversation with her, I said, it was actually all of that time, all those years serving tables, because it's really just being approachable, being willing to approach, and knowing what questions to ask. That's like
Absolutely.
90% of that job.
Absolutely.
And you
listening.
do that every day
Yeah.
in the restaurant.
Absolutely. We do. And it's who were you? I think you were talking to Alan. I saw the interview with Alan Rebel Pie, and I remember after watching that, I was like, well, that sounds like everything I would have said in his. It was a long podcast you did, and I was like, I think he said everything that I would say. There's really no sense of me going on there. And one thing was like with customers, there's not a dealing with people daily, right? I mean, we have here's what keeps me in the restaurant business. I had somebody, I'm jumping all around too. I had somebody ask me the other day, they said, what is the end goal for somebody who comes in now and wants to work for whatever you're paying an hour? And what's their end goal? And I was like, well, a lot of times it's college kids. A lot of times it's people who have worked in kitchens and have skill. It's all that. I said, but sometimes it's people who love the restaurant business, and I said, and when it bites you, when you get that bite, it's kind of hard to go to any other profession and get it
Yeah.
scratched, right? There's something about the hospitality industry, and you'll get to feel it a little bit at this weekend when there's a bunch of, especially at the grand tasting at the Wine and Food Festival downtown. There's a camaraderie of people that are in the service industry that's tangible. I don't know that you get that. I don't know if you get that. You get that in a room full of real estate agents. I mean, do you get that? Feel that camaraderie that like we're all going
Yes
through
and
something
no.
together.
Because it's so competitive on our side too that some people they lean more into that side, but there's definitely that element also.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of those things, and so I was telling him, I was like, unfortunately, I got bit by that bug, and I just don't know what else I really could do to be happy. And on the other side of it is handling. I can say this because I'm getting ready to reply to the guys. We got a 1-star review on Saturday, and this is just people. I mean, the man wasn't in our place 3 minutes. Google won't allow me to separate times. Like brunch, we end up stop serving brunch at 2, but we're open to 4 for coffee, right? At coffee,
Yeah.
and we got pastries or whatever. And the guy walked in. My barista said, "Are you here to eat?" Or no, he said, "We're here for brunch." He said, "I'm sorry, we quit closing at 2." And the guy left. They said something, but the Google said, and they said, "Yeah, won't let us." He leaves and called my barista arrogant, rude and arrogant, and blah blah blah. 4 minutes. We're open 7 days a week. We serve thousands of people a month, and the man and he's never put a review out. He puts out a review. So in the restaurant business, you can go for like when I walk in the restaurant when I leave here today, there's gonna be people that my customers who I haven't met before this place. I've got customers that come in who I've known through all my other restaurants, and I love every one of them. It really does feel hospitable and it feels like it's supposed to be, and that's our norm, And the people and I've noticed a lot. Uh, Even on reviews now, when you see people reviews on Facebook or Google or anything like that, you see a lot of times you see people rising up that know you and go, wait a minute,
Yeah.
that was off. And dude, I love that because it does feel you're getting piled on. And a lot of times it's about local people, and you're like, man, that's not cool. Y'all give us a break here. That was a bad day.
Let me say something about that real quick. That's a great opportunity for me to go into a door you just opened. I've been wanting to for a while. In the Facebook group, because I have people ask questions. They're like, well, why do you let people make negative comments? Freedom of speech. Short
Absolutely.
answer. Unless it's derogatory or
Absolutely.
hostile or something like that. There is a line, obviously. But if they want to say this stinks, that stinks, here's what I hope. And I'm putting this out there for those that are part of that group that will watch this. Many of you, and I've seen this happen, and it makes me it confirms it for me and makes me happy when I see it. Here's what I expect to see happen in that scenario. Somebody comes to a restaurant you're familiar with in Florence and they leave a negative review, and you know that it does not match the identity of that business. You know that doesn't match the quality of the service, food, whatever it is that you're accustomed to, which is why it's a place that you like and enjoy. Please respond with your experience, because I've seen multiple times and really, since it started to grow and develop, I haven't had as many people ask, because I think that a lot of people have started to figure it out on their own too. But somebody will come in there with some cynical, overly negative, overly critical, no grace at all comment, and the people in the group will just light them up. Like, I love that place. They're awesome.
Right,
I've
right.
been going there for 3 years, 4 years.
Right.
I know so-and-so, and so that's a fantastic place. And I'm like, yes, like that's how you overcome that, really.
Right. Because and a lot of times it's people come in for the first time, and we've had our share of bad reviews. But we have, I'm one of those kind of people that one bad review from Sunday, and it was this Sunday, this one I'm talking about, and there was another guy in there who I actually went through the timestamp from the time the guy came in, he said we were slow. He had all these things to say. And I, I wrote him back and said, I'm going to give you a 1-star review on being a reviewer.
Yeah.
I actually said to him, and I don't know if you'll get this quote, but I actually to him said, I don't review anywhere I go because I don't know. I haven't been, especially if I've never been there before. I just don't review it. I don't know. Even if it was a bad experience, either I can choose to come back or not, you know. But yeah.
Context matters. I need more context than just a one-off.
Yeah, this guy, I went through the whole TAMS from the register receipts and video, and he was in the place like 40 minutes and didn't order his food until 14 minutes. It took us 14 minutes. Now, we could have got the burritos out in less than 14 minutes. Something had happened with the ticket, but 14 minutes the guy wait from the time he ordered the food to the time he was letting there like 40 minutes. Never reviewed anywhere ever. 1 star. You got to wonder where those guys come from. You know what I mean? Like, is 1-star review. He's never put a review out there.
Yeah, that is weird.
Ever. It's weird. And so
you have to really go out of your way to do that.
Right. And so I was like, man, 4 minutes of this man's life. He's summing up our restaurant with his review. He was in there less than 4 minutes. He walked in and we didn't have food and they walked out. And he summed us up with a 1-star review. So that part of the restaurant business, it's new for me because we just went way back. If you wanted to review, you had to go talk to the manager and look him in the eyes,
Yeah.
or you had to tell somebody there. You could tell your friends, or it could get back to you through a grapevine, but it didn't go viral. It wasn't. It wasn't seen by wasn't affecting your rating or anything. And so today's a lot different. Those kind of things, they disturb me because we work really, really hard to keep that from happening. And you can't. And things are going to happen. You can't stop them. There's just absolutely no way. We've had horrible days, and if I came into most people's place of business and sat around for 7 days, I'm gonna find something to pick on them about by the time the 7 days is up.
And that we can relate to. I mean, I think any real estate agent, would attest to that. That's certainly the case in our business. And so I tell people just context matters. I'm big on that on everything. The Bible, the news, I don't care what it is.
Right.
Context matters, and just make sure that you read all the reviews. Because if somebody's doing business long enough, working with the public, somebody's going to come and something could have legitimately went wrong. Stuff does happen.
Absolutely.
People aren't perfect. It could have been, but a lot of times there was no legitimate complaint. They're going to leave a 1-star review anyways. Sometimes they were the problem.
Right.
And Google's not going to differentiate any of that for
Right.
you. So just read all the
of it,
reviews.
yeah.
And if they've got 100 good ones and 1 or 2 bad ones,
Right. That's
you
how
probably
I
know
do
what
it.
you need to know about those 1 or 2 bad ones.
I told that one guy, I said, I'm not a reviewer. I said, Anthony Bourdain is dead, and I'm not feeling so good myself. Do you remember there used to be a Southern writer called Louis Grizzard that wrote a book called Elvis is Dead, and I'm not.
And you crushing me on the pop culture today. I just watched Three Amigos the other day, for the record. I know Steve Martin, but
Most people know Louis Grizzard. It was a book, Elvis is Dead, I'm not feeling so good myself. And so when I wrote that, I was like, that's such a dated thing to say. There's be like 8 people that read my response and go, oh, he's Louis Grizzard. Yeah. Yeah, it's a trip. So yeah, but I love this business. It's look at all just spring out from what you've done, and you're not even in the restaurant business anymore.
Yeah.
And how it's just so tangible for people. I think people need to. Before we close the chapter on the review thing, I didn't mean to really open that can of worms too much, but I think people need to realize sometimes they're posting their opinion, not their profession.
yeah. They might not even know what
I'm
they're
not
talking
qualified to be a reviewer, really. I'm okay with your opinion, but maybe state this is my opinion. Just that I'm not reviewing it hard because I don't know. Maybe they are experts. I'm just.
No, I get it. I was actually a bit reluctant or hesitant in the beginning of the way that we branded all of this with the Florence Foodies, because really, technically, I think a foodie is some elite foodist, well traveled, and I mean I've been blessed to be able to travel a bit, but I mean I'm talking about like a Mark Wiens. I would view
Right.
him that way. I mean, this guy's all over. He's in remote villages
Right.
where there's no
Right.
electricity eating.
Right.
I mean, this guy.
And he considers context in his whole life. He's in these
Yes.
odd places, and he's not.
So I was kind of hesitant on the title, but I realized that it's become generalized in our culture, and so I was like, well, hopefully it'll, because you still want people to understand what you're doing. So,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, I don't consider myself to have the qualifications. I don't have the
Maybe on
experience of somebody like him.
cheesesteaks, though, right?
I might know a thing or two about those.
You know a thing or two. Yeah, we're getting ready to put some new items on our menu, and we're gonna have a a steak sandwich, but I'm not putting Philly anywhere near it, man. I'm not,
That's all. Yeah, that's it. That's the
it's
key.
gonna be a steak sandwich. Maybe not Philly. I'm like you though. I love them, man. I love Sibo's. I love Stefano's. I haven't, I trade a little bit with Steve and JJ with coffee, and instead of invoicing, I just get gift certificates as we eat,
Yeah.
and so I eat there all the time. They're great cheesesteaks. I haven't tried. I heard you talking about one, Busy Bees. I need to try that one
It's
out.
good. It's a little bit different.
That's right near me. I haven't been there yet. You go try it out.
I just haven't figured out why. I thought you opened the can of worms, but I don't. Nobody's putting the cheesesteak on the hard roll
Right.
locally.
Yeah.
And it's a structure thing. There's actually intention in that when you have a cheesesteak that's packed with that shaved ribeye and you've got cheese, it's very sloppy. And when you put it on the hard roll, the integrity of the roll actually holds the
Yeah.
sandwich together.
Yep. Yep.
Makes it very portable and convenient.
Yep. And you can get that. You can get that stuff. It's bread. I've heard that. I heard that conversation you've had a couple of times. Bread's a tricky thing in the restaurant business, especially around here. It's number one. People, I forget who you were interviewing. I watched it a while back,
It's
and they were
probably
talking.
Alan.
Yeah, it probably was Alan because he was talking about baking bread and holding bread, and he could bake all this bread, but at the time, and
It's a lot of
you know what?
overhead on time, labor.
I've taken some culinary classes, and I decided to take a bagel and baguette class at. Have you ever been to the Culinary Institute at the beach at the Tech?
No, I haven't.
Man, you and your wife should pick a class and do that one weekend. It was really cool experience. It was simple. They had, I guess, they got range of culinaries in there for a weekend class. There were people who were serious about making them. So I was really seriously considering doing it. I didn't understand how to bake the bread. I knew
Yeah.
when I worked at Benton's, he did sourdough bread, and it was delicious, and whole wheat sourdough bread, and he baked other things. And we would, at Christmas time, literally fill the tables up with raw bread, and we would spend the night overnight because you had to catch those things at certain times. They would proof at different.
Yeah.
And so we would bake bread all night long, and so he had bread. So it's bread is he was talking about having to hold it.
It's
and
labor intensive.
It is, and it dies quick. It's with the moisture and heat.
And there's not a lot of money in it as a standalone item.
Yeah, we use petard bread. Have you ever had a good piece of crunchy petard bread? Like, well, no, this real crunchy, hard shell, and we toast it. Anyway, we make
see a
po'
picture.
boys. You can't eat the po' boy because the bread's so crispy and crunchy. You kind of all squish it, want to squish it
Yeah.
out. But you can tear that and eat it in pieces, and that petard bread's amazing. So that we've stuck with that bread. I wanted to keep it around because I enjoy it
Yeah.
so much. But yeah, we use a rye, but it's all packaged. You're right on the bread. I get it. I'm a bread. You know what I did one time was fun? I went to Amsterdam with a buddy of mine, Wes Andrews, and we were. This guy he's so much fun, and he said, today we're going to get our entire meal from different places. Like, we got to get meat from a meat shop. They can't sell anything else in that shop but meat.
Mhm.
Like, we had to walk around Amsterdam until we find it. We're going to get cheese from a cheese shop. They can't sell anything else in the shop but cheese. We're going to get wine from a wine shop. And so we spent the whole day walking around Amsterdam. It gave us something to do while we were walking around, but we ended up putting together the freaking coolest dinner. And we bought everything just like he said. I remember on that journey, we found, somebody told it. This is before we had a map in our hand too. So we're like, hey, where is this? Or asking people to point where stuff is. We were walking to where the cheese shop was, the last thing we needed to get on our list for dinner. And I looked down in Amsterdam. They build buildings tall and they're real skinny aisles, right? So I looked down the little pathway there, and I see a South Carolina flag flying in front of one of the places. I went, y'all, look, is that a South Carolina flag? And they're like, yeah, we got to go down there, And we went in. It was a little bar about as big as this room, and you could literally touch it. It was a U-shaped bar, and they had kegs of beer on each side. You could literally touch one bar from the other. It was a small little place. And so we said, we're from South Carolina. He said, oh, my buddy owns a bar in Greenville, and he flies the Amsterdam flag over his place, and I fly the South Carolina flag over mine. And he said we both are really good friends and in the business. So that was just an interesting story, seeing a South Carolina flag in the middle of Amsterdam. But the bread shop we went in, you probably was wanting to roll around in there for a while. It was
Right.
everything you've always thought about getting with bread. I just don't know if the culture in Florence could sustain a bread shop. I don't want to see one open right this second because I don't know if they'd make it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I don't know if we're quite there yet, but I'd love. I'm like you. I
That's
agree.
what I'm maybe introducing, in which, to be fair, I would say that I would say Palmetto Bake Shop is doing this.
Yeah,
You
great
introduce,
food.
yeah, right by y'all. You
Yeah,
introduce particular items, slowly introduce the community to them. So in the case of the cheesesteak, which Positano's is doing, they've got a hard roll that they're putting there at the minimum their chicken parm on. I don't know what else. I guess you can get any sandwich they've got on it, but that would just be my thought. You just introduce that one thing, a seeded hard roll
Right.
on your cheesesteak. People gravitate to it, and that starts to open the door to maybe other items.
Yeah. Right.
I don't know.
What do you think about location of restaurants in Florence? I've seen a lot of good restaurants in bad locations
That's a problem, yeah.
not make it. I mean, like literally, but in good locations, convenient locations. But Florence,
It's
it's a
just
positioning
it
thing.
is,
It's
yeah.
weird that if you like, what a great restaurant, what a bad location, and almost always, I don't say I'm right, but almost always, like it seems like Florence seems like to have a. I can remember in Charlotte, we would drive across town to a little place, like, that was tucked away and hidden. But in Florence, like if you just you're 50 feet that way sometimes, and it seems like you get passed by even good
Yeah,
places. Yeah.
it is. I think, especially down on this end, I think about some of the places over there on Celebration, which they all, as far as I know, seem to be doing okay. But I think that it's probably harder for them than the folks once you get down to where you're at and then pushing down into downtown. Just the traffic is less. And I know that we've got so much. We had the Grove already, this almost complete, and now we've got this Lennar neighborhood here. So all the development, my hope is that, and obviously with Publix going in, all that's going to help them out tremendously. Because I mean, there's some good restaurants right there on Celebration. We can name 4 or 5,
Yeah.
off the top of the
Absolutely.
head.
I eat at two of them
Yeah,
all the time.
and so it's, I think they could benefit a lot from this development and this added traffic. And Publix is going to pull all kinds of people over to this side that normally wouldn't come over otherwise, i.e., and even go to their restaurants. So yes, it is an issue, but Florence is changing so much. I mean, you think about Elliot's really. I don't know the whole backstory. Certainly Tim Norwood could probably highlight more of it, but I think this is complete speculation on my part. I'm just speculating from what I think I may have heard possibly. But I think the seminar was not doing super well at a point in time. And if that is the case, I could totally understand why, because the location, who's really out there. But now that started to change, and a lot of that downtown development pushing outwards has probably been another tremendous help, on the front end or back end to Elliot's.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that should continue to happen.
When you lived in other places, did it feel like you were just willing to travel easier to another restaurant on the other side of town?
Yeah.
For some reason, when I lived in Charlotte, like I said, we even at the beach when I lived there, it seemed like location of something wasn't a bigger problem.
I'm
as
guilty
was
of it
here.
too, because I'm on this side, and I mean I've said this multiple times. Places that are on the south side, I rarely go to.
Yeah,
I just don't go all the way over there
right.
to eat, especially if I'm not dining in.
Yeah,
So like Stefano's would be an example.
Right,
Like
right.
Stefano's is great. Well, why you're not there frequently? It really, even especially now with all the kids, that's the reason for anything. But
yeah,
even prior to that, because it's on the south end,
yeah.
I just don't go over there much.
Now you mentioned Stefano's. I went to their wine dinner the other night. I
Mhm.
took my favorite uncle died, and we went with my aunt. I took her and my other aunt, my wife, and my son Thomas. We went. You know what was the coolest thing about that? Number one, Steve and Anna. They're incredible people. Great hosts. Sam Tinsley did the wine. So it was just to be in a room with those guys is a lot of fun. But you know what? Really, when I walked away from that, we had like 3.5 hours of sitting at a table, not in a hurry. Not
Mhm.
not trying to get up, not trying to watch the TV or catch. It was this so cool to sit there, and they space the time out perfect. That sounds like a long time, but when you're with the people you love, you
Yeah.
want more time like that. And so it was a really, really great event. Just you said Stefano's, and that popped in my mind. Yeah, it was a great event. I look forward to doing another one of those. It was a great, great, just chill. Take a
A lot of times that's what I want, man. You were talking about bad reviews earlier, and like our culture, everybody's in such a hurry, and
Yeah,
sometimes that maybe you do have to move quicker because you got to be somewhere. But a lot of times, especially if I'm spending the money, I don't want to be rushed through. I
yeah,
want to take my time and enjoy it.
absolutely. I don't want the check on the table before I ask it. I
Right.
get it. Absolutely, absolutely. That's true.
So it just depends, especially something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was super nice. I'm giving a plug for them. That
Yeah.
if you, I think they do it, trying to do them like once, 2 or 3 of them
Yeah, I
a
know they've
year.
done a few
Yeah, a lot of
recently.
fun. Really cool. Good food. Excellent food.
So it is weird to me that I've heard this multiple times, and even I guess really through the Facebook group, just seeing people will post stuff or comments that are made. And when I said that at the beginning, there's a lot of truth to that. I don't know how much of that you hear or are aware of, but it's people do not know you're there. You're right there at 5 Points. Everybody is going through 5 Points. That's the one place that all of you are going through, no matter where you live
Yeah,
in the county or definitely in the city area. And yet people aren't aware that FE Pops is sitting right
I
there.
know it. We're a kept secret.
So for that crowd of people, what do y'all do there?
uh, Coffee and good food. And we just it's a that little house has been so many different things. That we talked about that before. And to hear the stories, and I always watch that house through all those different phases. I actually rented it. I don't know if I talked about this last time we were together, but I actually rented it for a month or two from the guy I ended up buying it from. And this is horrible, but we were we were gonna put like a wet willies in there. It was Florence wasn't ready for ready for daiquiri machines with 190 octane alcohol in them at 5 Points in 1997. Probably not ready for that now, but that was our plan in my young brain back then. So we rented the building, and I was excited about that house. But I've watched that house. I mean, I paid money to rent it to think that we were going to do that. Um, Thank God that didn't work out. You know what I mean? That would have been a disaster. Feeding people those daiquiris and just watching them get through 5 Points. So I had a 5 o'clock on a Friday. That wouldn't have been good. But I've watched that house forever, man. Just so I've kind of fell in love with it. We were sitting at the Pink House in Savannah eating dinner. Me and my wife was, and she probably wanted me out of the restaurant business a long time ago. And she said, the little house is up for rent. I saw that, or up for sale. I saw the sign in the yard, and I had no idea at the time. He had just put it up for sale. And I went, "Why are you telling me that?" I was like, I'll act on it. So we had a conversation. She said, "Well, check and see." And I ended up, going back and sitting down with Alan and working out a deal and buying the place. And so that house, I still let me back up just a little bit. I said in the beginning that I work on momentum. I like to put a big idea out front and then push things towards it. That got the wind that blew those things got knocked the heck out of me when we opened. Like I couldn't see tomorrow. I was trying to figure out how to get through the day today, and that held for about 3 years. Like I literally couldn't see the next minute. And I knew I owed everybody
Yeah.
money from the last minutes. It was just this intense. And I can confess here, probably for the first time publicly ever, that I didn't know if we were going to make it, and I didn't want to spend money on advertising. I didn't want to invite people in because we were. I just didn't know. I mean, it got to that point, and so I didn't do a lot of advertising on purpose. Number one, it was only just two of us with one person working up front, and we would get busy sometimes. And during COVID, just doing to-go orders, we would run long ticket times. So there's just two of us back there. Couldn't pay anybody else. So it just started rough like that. And so I think the reason we haven't come out swinging with a lot of promotion, a lot of that, is because we're ready for it now. I think I'm past due now, and preface that. But I think I've used not advertising as a governor. I think we lost it a couple of times on brunches where it just got out of hand. We had I had 3 high school girls one time. We had no wait staff. Two people had left. We had no wait staff. So we just started doing brunch. And I'll tell you about a bad review from that. We won't get off on that again. Um, I had 3 high school girls, like sophomores and juniors, never had a job in their life, had been working there for like a week, maybe worked a shift or two. And so we had the entire inside of Pops, the entire deck. And then I had tables like galore. Like I had 8 picnic tables and other tables on, and it was all full. All full. 2 people in the kitchen going as hard as they can. And these girls, all 3, broke down and started crying.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember getting them out of the bathroom like, there's no crying
So
in the
that's
restaurant
real
business.
quick. That's a whole thing for those that don't know. Somebody crying in the bathroom.
Oh
That's
my goodness! And I remember finally get her back on her feet. I'm like, all right, let's go. We can't stop. You got to get back out there. She walked back out to the table who made her cry, and they didn't do anything to make her cry. I mean, I'm
it's just
not blaming the table.
overwhelming, man.
Yeah, and she said, and they asked her for like an extra ranch or something, and she lost it.
Yeah.
She started crying and ran back in the bathroom. So that's the kind of day we were having. So I started probably shortly after that governing, even more so, taking some tables out, and so I've used non-advertising and just not getting out there over 4 or 5 years now, just to govern what we can handle. I want people to have a great experience. I feel like if I've come this far with no cash, you know, what I mean, we've made it this far. I want your experience to be good. That's why the 1-star review I was telling you about earlier makes me so mad. We're working so hard. And my Chelsea, my chef, Chelsea Taylor, she's phenomenal. She is the hardest working, sweetest. She can rule with a fist if she needs to, but she's sweet 99% of the time. You know, she got mad at all the guys the other day. She said, "I'm tired of working with guys who act like girls." I said, "Chelsea." Later on, when she calmed down some, I said, "Chelsea, am I ever one of those guys?" She just looked at me. She darted her eyes at me. She said, "You have your Chardonnay moments." I don't know what that meant, but I was like,
I don't even know
all
what that
right.
means, but that's
Is that good or bad? She said Chardonnay, though. I kind of felt like it wasn't good.
That's
Anyway, we've just worked so hard, man. I feel like the people who know we're there, it's not enough right now. We need to be busier in a way, you know, but it's probably more me than anything right now, just wanting to make sure that the people who are there are having a great experience, you know. I've heard it said many times in this room, staffing issues, you know, that's a constant. We had a new person that got on our group text we had hired, and she said, "Why don't y'all have a name for this group text?" It's like, because it changes daily, you know, like we're constantly changing it. But I do have some incredible employees that love the place. Some of them love it maybe more than I do, you know, and I want them to make money, get treated fairly, and so we're going to get there. I think I think this year's the year we're probably going to try to make a mark towards the end of the year. We did a couple of concerts last year. We did one with a band called Susto, and we charged like $25 a ticket, which is just unheard of in Florence. Like you don't charge to see bands in Florence. It's never. That's another thing in food culture and restaurant culture. When you add live music and stuff, people in Florence, the expectation is there's no cover charge, or they're not going. They'll go somewhere else. That's how it used to be, and so that's kind of stuck. That's one of the things that's kind of stuck in this industry. I'm like, well, you can't see this guy anywhere else in the country for less than $20 or for $25. Your tickets are going to be $40, $50 plus. I'm letting you see him in the back porch back here for $25. And we had well over 100 people come out, you know, and pay the money. And some of them didn't even know him. So Florence is primed, I think, for events like that. My place is really too small to do all that I want to do like that there. But I've talked to other people with different venues and stuff to try to get more quality acts through here. I've got 3 or 4 people at the end of the year that people will know who they are, and hopefully can set up and do some more things like that. I think this is the year going into next year that we're really going to kind of start poking our head up above the fray and just trying to set ourselves apart a little bit. I'm okay with where we are, not financially, but I'm okay with where we are as a business, as a group, and as a restaurant. I think we've got great baristas, we've got a great staff in the kitchen. I finally got great dishwashers because that's my
That was
job.
you for a while.
Oh man. Well, you know what? That's actually my favorite spot in the kitchen. You know, it's tough if there is a complaint. I have to go out with shrimp and grits all over my shirt and talk to a table. But I like it back there. I can play music. It's just me and the dishes. Pile them up. I'll get to them. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't mind washing dishes. You know.
So, as far as the offerings, obviously you guys do coffee, and then what does the menu look like?
We're getting ready to add a steak sandwich I was telling you about. We have a caprese salad sandwich or caprese sandwich coming out, and putting a caprese salad back on the menu. We sold a lot of those during COVID, and we just took it off for some reason, and that's coming back. I know you always ask guests what their favorite is.
I'm gonna ask you that in a moment.
Yeah, and well, I mean, I would say probably the favorite thing that I hear in our restaurant, believe it or not, I kind of wish it wasn't a salad. I wish there was some like big hearty dish, but our blackened chicken Caesar salad is phenomenal. I mean, it really. I'm not trying to be a frog croaking on its own pond, but that salad is good. My wife would eat 3 of them a week, like, and she'd eat them every night. Like, they're just delicious. They're really good. The dressing's great. It's fresh Parmesan. Really good salad. So that's something we have. Coffee's a big. That's one of the pontoons that hold the boat up. We sell a lot of coffee. Coffee, I enjoy that. I roast coffee with batch 9, so I love that part of it. I kind of wish the place could just be I wish I could make the money we need to make just selling coffee and pastries, but you can't do that. Can't keep the doors open like that.
I gotta ask. I wasn't going to, but I've got to. How's the steak sandwich going to be dressed? Give me the rundown on that. Can you say?
It's shaved.
Yeah.
It's going to be on. You know what? You got me thinking about the bread now. I mean, we hadn't put the menu out yet, but you've got me all thinking about the bread. Like, if somebody would just do that, and I'm like, I could probably get a hard roll, you know. But then I'd probably have to change the whole thing up to put the cheese in from. Maybe I could get cheese from, like you said, get cheese from Steve, and then I could get the. What'd you say? What'd you say? The perfect one would be the. You said cheese from Stefano's.
Yeah, their cheese to meat ratio is
Yeah, yeah.
good. The meat to bread ratio at Busy Bees I thought was really nice. I actually think the flavor on SC Real Foods is however they're seasoning the meat, whatever they were doing with theirs was pretty good.
This is going to be a steak sandwich. It's not going to be a Philly. I'm not going to put myself under that scrutiny right here at first. Yeah.
All right. Redbone's got a good one now too.
Yeah, you know, I heard that too, and I ate there the other night, and I looked right. I eat so many of them from Stefano's and
Yeah.
Sibo that
They're all different, you know.
yeah, they're all different. That I just pass it over usually at other places because I had one a day or so before. So, yeah.
Okay, what we'll let that ride then. I
Yeah.
know you guys. Well, hold on, I'm cut this off. Y'all are. What's going on with brunch? Did that?
We it's still the same thing. We haven't done anything with brunch. When this new menu come out, we'll probably switch some things up with brunch, but we're still running the same menu.
Okay. So I want to ask you, obviously coffee is kind of foundational. It is foundational to FE Pops. And I know that for a long time, it's very clear to me I was coffee ignorant. I think I, by chance, stumbled into some good coffee at different times. Best coffee I've ever had to date that just sticks out of my mind was down in Nicaragua.
Mm.
Fantastic. I mean,
Yeah.
it was amazing all the way around the board. I brought like 3 bags home, and I was sad when I brewed that last batch. But speaking of batches, you know, you have batch 9 coffee that you started that y'all serve. And one thing that I was ignorant to that you actually played a role in helping me understand, because I didn't even realize I had an ignorance in that area, was I thought that if coffee was dark roasted, then that meant that it was a stronger coffee by
Yeah.
default.
A lot of
Those
people
things
think
were
that, yeah.
synonymous. So I didn't understand. So why don't you give us just it could be brief, but a little coffee 101.
I got a theory about that.
Okay.
I think it's true. When we first started roasting coffee, we bought beans from Larry's Beans. Those guys were great up in Raleigh. They helped really train us as baristas. We were splashing milk all over ourselves, trying to self-train, and they said, "Come up here and we'll take care of you." And they really did. They took a whole day with us and just taught us about coffee, showed us their roasting processes, and trained us on barista. So we started with them, and then in the evolution, I was like, "There's only one middleman between us and the thing," and so we just, the importer, and we're paying them a lot of money every single week. Let's consider roasting, and so we bought a roaster, taught ourselves to roast. The amazing thing about that, there were people in the coffee industry that were forerun. I mean, like just Mark Mickelson, I think that's how you say his last name. He was a world coffee roaster. He won the cup, world coffee roaster, and we could email that guy a question, and he would promptly email us back. So we had a guy that was running the coffee company Revelator would pick up the phone if he needed to talk us through, like, we're not getting the profile we want or whatever. So coffee world, I was just like you. I mean, when we started coffee, I went to coffee shops. Didn't know much about it. My go-to cup was a bold at Krispy Kreme, like 99% of everybody else in Florence, right?
Yeah.
And so here's what we started roasting, and the guys I was roasting with at first, and the guy that was my partner at first, they really, we were leaning heavily towards lighter roasted Ethiopian tea-like coffees with a lot of flavor, but tea-like. They were good to drink black because they were like, sometimes you could really taste the notes. And so it was a light, and we weren't selling much of that coffee. And it didn't really, a lot of times when you get a really good acidic, if it has citrus notes or floral or whatever, and you add cream to it, it sours it, it makes it sour. And so we were roasting coffee, but I felt like it wasn't going anywhere because people were like, this doesn't taste the same, because they were light roasted coffees inside of a cup. And so we developed Ultraviolet, which is our darkest roast. And here's why. I knew going in when we opened Lula's, because it had been Aroma Underground and it had been through manager after manager after manager. We changed the name to totally reset the place. I didn't want to revive a brand. I wanted to bring a new brand to the market. And I knew going in that I didn't know much about coffee culture. I knew absolutely nothing about it. My attitude was, it's just coffee, right? How complicated can it be? And on one hand, it is just coffee, but then you start learning the little teeny things that tweak to really get a cup of coffee good. And so I knew that we had to have a darker roast. We had to have a roast that people here's the theory. Here's what I think I was telling you. When you roast a bean super black, people they think that that's like trying to add blood to a steak during the cooking process. You know what I mean? It's already in there. You're not going to get any more by cooking it, or you're just going to cook less of what's in the steak out of it the more you cook it, right? Because eventually it's going to turn into carbon if you keep it on the grill too long. Same thing as a coffee bean. When you get it in, it's full of flavor. It's full of everything that ground's produced in that bean. It's gone through phenomenal processes. There's 3 coffee processes. One is a washed, where they put all the beans in the barrel, then they clean them completely dry, right? And you get those so it's clean and doesn't have anything. Another one's real quick is a natural process, where they just leave all the fruit on and let it dry. Then they pull it off so those sugars stay on the outside of the bean, right? And then you got a honey process, and it's just kind of like the washed. Anyway, there's these different processes. If you take those coffees, I knew we had to have a blacker coffee, so I took a combination of those 3, and we made a blend, the Ultraviolet blend. Because I knew people were looking for a bitter taste that they've gotten from Krispy Kreme or from their store-bought coffee their whole life. There's something about, I think it's a Pavlov's dog kind of thing. I think that when people feel that dark, nasty, carbon, bitter bite,
Yeah.
I really do. I think that's what they're looking for. They're not looking for the coffee to be good. They're looking for the coffee to wake them up, right? And if they don't get that bite, your coffee's horrible. And we ran into a lot. I still run into that. Like it's they're not comparing apples to apples. They're comparing a Krispy Kreme coffee to, and I'm not even saying just for Batch 90, even what the other coffee shops are doing. They're comparing that to what these other great coffee shops around me are doing. and it's not. It's not apples to apples. And so I knew we had to. I think that bite, that bitterness, that comes from that oily, over roasted bean is what people are looking for. And so I wanted to get as close to that as I could without ruining the the integrity of the cup of coffee. And we came up with the ultraviolet, and we take that coffee to as far as matte. When I say matte color, like with no shine on it, 3 more degrees, you would start seeing shine on the bean. When you open a bag of coffee, it's oily black beans. When you run hot water through ground coffee, you're pulling the oils off the coffee, right? So if you over pour on a cup, you're starting to pull char and carbon into your cup, right? That's what people look for. That's what a lot of people from around here look for, because that's what we grew up on. It's kind of like Alan was talking about white bread and Merita. People grew up on bitter, over extracted, over brewed coffee, but that's their Pavlov. That's the bell ding, and that's what tells them that it's. And so it's taken a lot of people a while not to look for that and look for flavor, right? Look for flavor in your coffee, and so I feel like that I could roast a darker coffee, but why? Because you're getting you're getting all the dark you need in ultraviolet, whatever. So that's we sell a lot of we sell 10 bags of ultraviolet by single origins that we put out there. So an exciting thing, tentatively right now, I'm planning on bringing the roaster to 5 Points, and so I'm going to fly to San Diego in a couple of weeks, hopefully, and go to the World Expo, and because there'll be a whole giant room of roasters, and take my time and go through there and pick. I want to make sure I'm getting the right one, and thinking about buying a convection roaster, but I roast dark coffee. I can't imagine browning something in the air. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? But they've got answers for that. I just want to go put my hands on it and see it. I can imagine putting a steak in a fry, or something that's gonna flip it in the air and singe it and blacken it like I want it. And I'm afraid, because ultraviolet, because our darker roast is our best seller, I don't want to mess that up. So I'm gonna fly out there and make sure.
It's funny you say that, because that's what I was going to say, but that's actually, what you gave, the analogy you gave, but it made me think about steak. And obviously, on top of just life in general, being in the restaurant industry, a lot of people like their steak well done. Like, I mean, a lot of people, that's how
Yeah,
they will buy a $40 or $50 steak or more, $100 and something dollar
right.
steak, and
And
order that
that's
joker well
okay.
done.
That's okay.
And if that's what you like, that's
That's
what you
what you
like.
like.
But to me, you lose that flavor at that point.
Let me tell you, a tipping point for us in coffee came before we served the first cup to the public. I was buying T-shirts from a girl right down the road. Her company, she was the girl I'm talking about was a receptionist. I went down and I said, "Hey, I'm here to get the T-shirt." She said, "What are you doing down there?" And I said, "I'm opening a coffee shop." And she literally, dude, I'm really not exaggerating. She turned this red. I mean, her ears got right. She goes, "I'll probably never go in there." I was like, "Why would you say that? I hadn't even opened yet. Why would you say that?" And she goes, "I've never been to Starbucks." And I'm not bashing Starbucks. This is her story. I'm quoting. Um, she said, "I went in, and I think this has been a while back. This was before Lula's even opened, and we opened that in 2012." And she said, I went in, and she goes, "I was nervous. I didn't know. I knew that I'd heard all the jokes
Yeah.
about the lingo or whatever." And she happened to, and this probably isn't the norm at Starbucks, but she happened to get that one guy who wanted to make you feel small for not saying tall. You know what I mean? Like, or vente or whatever. She didn't
Yeah.
know, and she
I'm still
felt
going to say medium.
right, right. Do they
I
accept
don't
that
really
as
go
an
there.
answer?
I don't go there, but if I do, I'm going
Do
to
they
say it.
accept that answer now? I don't think they accepted
And I'm
it
going to have
with
a
her.
choice if I'm going to buy it. You know which one I'm talking about,
Point
man.
at it, yeah. I get it, yeah. Yeah, we wrote large, medium, small Lula's. But yeah, but her experience was horrible. I don't know what happened, but she broke down at the counter. Like, it was a first world problem, but it
Yeah.
affected this lady. You know what I mean? It affected her. She was embarrassed, and the guy didn't help things. And she said, "I ended up just getting a cup of coffee." She said, "I was shaking." I was like, wow. All right, so some of it might be, she was overreacting, but I remember I left there, and I walked in, because they were in kind of the whole third wave coffee thing. Starbucks was the guiding light. I mean, everybody
Yeah.
used Starbucks as a standard, right? And I'd heard all the cracks about the size and all that, the pretentious, all that stuff. And so I came in and the staff was there training and all, and I pulled everybody together and I said, look, we're never, ever, ever, ever going to make somebody feel like that about, I told them the story about a cup of coffee. I was like, this is a community that there's no coffee culture in. Coffee culture was zilch in Florence at the time, you know. Aroma Underground had been around for a while when we bought it. And so we stopped. We totally, our number one mission was every person that come up. We would help walk them through, even if the line started going behind them, walk them through. If you know, you probably don't notice this. You're not in the coffee business, but usually if somebody gets a drink they like, that's what they order forever. You know, they get the white mocha with a pump of lavender and caramel and hazelnut and whatever, and a half a pump of, and three quarters of a pump. You know, it's just like everybody gets, that's what they want. You know what I mean? That's that. And so I said, whatever people want, that's what they're going to get. Whatever they're used to, let's try to hit it. And if somebody's interested, we did a lot of pour overs back in the day to slow our customers down, to be able to sit them at the counter and literally look at them and say, hey, why don't you learn with us? This is all new to us too. Let's try this together. We did a lot of that and really built a great culture around coffee by slowing people down and doing that. So it, I think Florence, we are one of the scenes in Florence that has come a long way that you can actually put your finger on is the coffee industry. Like
I
it
can see
is
that.
that part of hospitality. Bean Bar
Yeah.
is crushing it. You
Yeah.
know, you got Cashewa's roasting coffee. You got all these Lincoln. You got all these different places that are doing really good coffee now, and that was just unheard of when we opened Lula's. We were Bean Groovy was out near the mall at the time, and so our again, kind of like I was saying with Pops, our plan was to slowly integrate coffee culture into Florence because I knew you couldn't change it overnight. And addressing that bitter thing was one of the first things. Like, let's get something as we roast that's going to be comparable to something that people can relate to, and then let's go from there. You know, so I enjoy coffee. I enjoy. I roast 5 pounds at a time right now. Love. We do. It takes about 20, 25 minutes per 5 pounds when you from bagging, roasting, bagging it back up. Um, and so you can imagine what 100 pounds in a week looks like. It's
Yeah.
just laborious and it takes a lot of time. So
Wow.
I'm gonna get a bigger roaster and set myself free. Maybe I have time to promote Pops on that. I don't know.
All right. Well, good. That's a good little education. So I appreciate that. So it's that time. We're gonna do our Florence Foodies' favorite Florence food item. This is presented by Zapata's Grill on Papago Highway.
You know,
And you know the question. I'm gonna ask, what are one or two of your favorite items when you go out to eat? I was gonna ask if you wanted to throw in something from Pops, but obviously you mentioned the blackened chicken C's
right.
earlier. So we probably,
Well,
if you want to add something else, go for it.
what's your buddy's name that got you into the foodie thing? Your first guest. What's his name again?
Lewis Hill.
Lewis. All right. So I watched that and I love because that's a hard question, especially. There's so much good food that I like to eat in Florence. Like, how do you narrow it down? And you guys said, "What's your receipt say?"
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you could
Follow
say
the
that.
checkbook. The checkbook
Follow
tells
the
the truth.
checkbook, right? We eat. My wife will eat those salads from Pops. Like literally, if I brought one home every night this week, she would not blink. She really wouldn't blink. They're really good. I if I put my money on it, it would still, even when I don't have gift cards, it'd probably be Stefano's or go the Red Bone. And and I don't know if that's because there's not that I'm just following the checkbook, right?
Yeah.
That I eat from all kind of other places, but I think it's just I think we become creatures of habit,
Yeah.
and it's good. And I don't have to think about it. Like Friday night, I think I ordered from Red Bone, and it was just like, what are we doing for dinner? I'm gonna order. Let's just do this. You know what I mean? It's just easy, and so I find myself gravitating. It's not my favorite thing that Red Bone has, but for some reason, my wife don't cook gravy and potatoes. She don't cook that kind of stuff. We eat a little bit lighter at home, but anytime I can get a piece of meat that I can put in some gravy and mashed potatoes,
Yeah.
oh man, that's my kind of stuff. So I got the fried steak from Red Bone. I've gotten that several times.
Okay.
With mashed potatoes. They say, "Do you want a salad?" No, I just double my mashed potatoes and gravy up.
Yeah.
Give me that steak. So good, good. That would those would be probably what the checkbooks say. You know.
All right.
We also eat at Dan over at little or Tokyo Express near Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
Dan used to work his family owned King's Light, which was right across from the Mexican restaurant over there. Yeah, King's Light, which was Florence staple forever, and we
Is
became
that
really.
Golden Dragon now?
I think so. Yeah. But yeah, that it used to be so. The food was really really good, and became friends with Dan. He runs the place over there, so. I'm partial to my friends as
I
much
didn't
as I
know
am.
that.
Yeah, I'm partial to my friends sometimes as much as I am to the
Sure.
food, you know. And so if I'm gonna get sticky rice, I'll go buy it from Dan, and he's got usually does really fresh vegetables for me, and has really decent steak to throw on it. So we eat from there a pretty good bit too if we're looking for that kind
Okay.
of stuff. Yeah,
That's a good
you
one.
got to check him out. And he's a super dude.
I've been over there a bit.
Have
Again,
you?
though, I don't go on the South End that much.
Yeah.
More so now doing this line of work than I used to. I just hardly ever go over there
Yeah,
before.
and it's the traffic over there is enough to keep you from going over there. I mean, it's steep over there.
That area is changing too, and the
is.
food scene in Florence is definitely changing a lot, especially over the last. And we won't get into all of it, but we had one era, and then it felt like we kind of hit like a lull to me of just like the fast food and chain era, and now it feels like we really start to emerge out of that to a new era of Florence food, and you guys are certainly a part of that. So
Thanks.
definitely appreciate everything that y'all are doing.
Tucked away and quiet, but we're there.
Tucked away and quiet in the middle of 5 Points, where everybody's at all day.
Right. You know, somebody said, I think, again, I feel like I'm quoting Alan. Like I said, you could just I felt like I said everything he said. And when I was watching that interview, I was like, man, we are like the same person or something. But we have that same parking problem. The other day, I had 2 or 3 people say, man, we were coming to lunch Wednesday, but when we got there, the parking lot was packed. I'm like, and we looked outside, and it was one of those pretty days last week, and the whole deck was packed, and we went somewhere else. But there was nobody on the inside of the restaurant. You could have eaten in 15 minutes, right? But just the way my little parking lot looks, I get that comment all the time. We were coming to brunch, but I was like, man, there were 20 people in here, and they all drove different cars, and then my staff was all in the parking lot. You know what I mean? And so parking's a thing. The church has been generous and let my staff park over there on Saturdays during brunch, and the Derrick Law Firm beside us lets us park over there on Sundays while church is having. So that relieves it a little bit. But yeah, that's we're still tucked over there, but don't let the cars fool you. Sometimes we have seats inside.
Just find somewhere to fit in.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Tommy, it's been great. I do appreciate it. I was waiting to do this one for a long time. I've been
Yeah,
asking you
man.
for like a year and a half.
You've asked me a couple of times. Thank you. I felt it was, I didn't have much to talk about back then. I feel like I do now, man. And let me say thank you for what you do, dude. I really do. I do appreciate. Before I think you started rolling the cameras, I was telling you, how do you do all that you do? But somebody puts themselves out there, gives us a voice, sits and fights between us. It just kind of helps us manage it. I appreciate it. You work hard, brother. I appreciate what you do.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm having a good time doing it. It gives me an excuse to eat.
Yeah, it's fun watching. Yeah.
So
It's fun to watch.
well, I appreciate it.
Anything I can ever do, let me know, bro. I'm in.
You're doing plenty. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you taking the time to come up and do this. I know
Yes,
you're
sir.
a busy guy also.
Yes, sir.
And as always, I appreciate y'all's viewership. God willing, we'll see you on the next one.
Or go to Effie Pops. Get a Reuben sandwich and that pasta salad. Yeah.
You need to grab lunch. You only got about an hour, want something to eat, but you don't got a lot of time. You might need to think and make something out of nothing. You've been handling your biz, you deserve a little something. You need to grab lunch. You only got about an hour, want something to eat, but you don't got a lot of time. You might need to think and make something out of nothing. You've been handling your biz, you deserve a little something.
You might leave early, so you can beat the traffic. Sometimes you don't have time to eat, and you can't really stand it.